Howdy, all you delicious people. I am here today to review the last episode of Chucky, episode 8. Really, when looking at it, I've had a lot of fun with this series. It's been very interesting having a lot of people, come on here and just watch this season along with me. Thank you for being a part of this show. I hope to eventually go on, and I think a lot of people are also doing that as well. And I guess I could probably have some certain Child's Play movies to still cover, some Chucky films to probably still cover, and I think a lot of other people are doing that also. So I don't feel like I'm breaking any new ground here, but maybe eventually, considering it seems if I am to want to keep continuing on um, with this until the second season is to arrive. Just finally, why not go through the rest of the Chucky Child's Play movies? Because if it's seemingly being that this first season was to tie into quite a mixture of characters from the other films, I'm assuming the following season is going to be doing that also. So, going into this episode, but before we do that, so overall, I would say uh, that there has been some bumps in the road in this season. I'm not going to say that every episode was to be the most perfect thing to be put out, but I think overall, this is a great season nonetheless. With there to have been these real bumps in the road, and so about this episode, I would honestly feel that I would say there's really good parts about this episode, but I also I have mixed feelings about this episode simply because we're to be from the last episode kind of promised that we're going to have a much more bigger scale kind of Chucky attack. And this episode doesn't exactly deliver that. It just kind of delivers the same old, same old. And, we don't even get, the cult of Chucky kind of, scale of, murdering either. And so I guess, we're just never really gonna get, this, Chucky City attack kind of thing going on. Instead, we're just gonna have a couple of Chucky dolls, maybe one uh, other one than the one we already have, or possibly three going off and killing people. So, but I think the best thing for me would probably be that whole movie theater segment. I think that whole scene there was probably the best part of this whole movie, or this whole episode, I mean. So really I could say that I think we were to have told that Mayor Michelle Cross was going to eventually have this kind of fundraising scheme to eventually have everything kind of boost morale by everyone going into this Frankenstein movie. So I think that was kind of a setup for them going off into this movie theater in this episode. So with that said, how did I feel about the usefulness of Andy and Kyle in this episode? Well, uh I don't know, it just kind of feels very weird. You would think the TV characters would go on and really be trying to get rid of Chucky, but instead we hand it back off to certain movie characters, and like they're also doing like most of the heavy lifting through seemingly most of this show or most of the episodes. It's like you have to uh like you keep having to bring in Nika, you keep really having uh Jennifer Tilly kind of used heavily in the show, either one way or another, where she's either the Tiffany doll, or she's Tiffany Valentine, or she's Jennifer Tilly, or whoever. So, so she's basically at some point even playing herself. So, going into this show, yeah, I have mixed feelings about this show, this episode, I mean. Um, but there is some fun parts about it. There is some uh, interesting things that kind of come out of the story, and there is a seemingly a collection of deaths that are to kind of accumulate by the end of this episode. So, with that said, let's just go into spoilers about this one. I've kind of stretched this one out a little bit long enough. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this season finale. Were you like really impressed by it? Were you really happy by it? To me, this this finale probably compared to the the remake Child's Play movie. I think I would like that finale better than this one. Hence why I kind of have this kind of pulling back thing about it, where I'm like, I like the way that movie ended a lot better than the way that this show ended. Because we kind of go back to the same old kind of format of things, but we have some fun with this character, and that's the one thing that I can enjoy about the show is we just have fun with a lot of these things. So let's go into that double 5-time territory. Let's just go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time you can spoil this episode. So as we were to have left off with supposedly Devin taped up and held hostage, and so it seems that Junior was to be converted to seemingly being one of Chucky's children, I guess, to go off and murder people. And so that actually worked, and that worked pretty much all the way through the show. So I thought that was pretty cool. So now we are to, of course, have how does this episode begin exactly? Well, we do have a flashback in this episode that is to evidently tell us in the flashback that evidently Jennifer was to have gone on to call the sheriff's department and let them know that Charles Lee Ray was out and about in their town. And that was kind of a little flashback, but that flashback is to be tied to a story where Tilly is to eventually tell Chucky how exactly he was to have gotten arrested on that night, or was to be shot that night. So, because we just have to retcon and change everything. It doesn't seem the goofy thing is, it kind of the thing that this is to attach itself to mainly is to also have to retcon itself, because if Charles Lee Ray was to be spending all of his time with Tiffany, why would he then turn around and want to be with Nika's mother in the original like Cult of Chucky lead up moment where then Chucky ends up getting arrested? Was that just another time where Chucky was to have fun with some other woman, but then like weirdly she wanted to like have her be family? Like that doesn't perfectly, that kind of ruins like Cult of Chucky a little bit there, where it like where things don't quite add up or quite make sense to me. And so like it seems like we're doing so much like retconning, or we're doing so many things to kind of clean up uh certain kind of films somewhere. I don't know, it's so weird. So but let's go to actual current time here. So Andy is to make his way to Junior, who of course had just murdered his father. And so Andy is to go and knock on the door, and Junior and Chucky are looking outside the door to see Andy there. And so Junior is like, "Hey, who's that guy?" And so Junior, of course, is to go on to answer this door. And so Andy is there so that way he can go on and see where this Chucky doll is and try and kill this doll off. But Andy is like really going out of his way to ask Junior so many questions that he is to try to like figure out if like Junior's working him or something. So Junior asks, or Andy asks Junior, it's like, well, hey, like, where is this Chucky doll? Is it just so happened to be in this house somewhere? And Junior's like, well, no, like, my dad went off with it, conveniently, right? So Andy's like, well, hey, like, how about we do this? Like, how about I call your dad's cell, and maybe I can get in contact with him, and maybe I can just like check out the doll so I can buy it. Because Andy is to mention that Andy is to go on and buy this doll supposedly from Jake, because Jake was selling it on some online chat, and Andy got a hold of him from pilot episode, and now he's just finally 8 episodes later gone on to fulfill that promise. I'm like, so like we just had all these like side stories and all this stuff to finally have by the 8th episode, conveniently having Andy arrive here to then help out these people on the very last episode. I'm like, man, it's kind of convenient, right? But like we have it where reasonably there has to be just a ton of convenient things for a show, plus also we have to write everything perfectly for a show anyways, just like a movie. Ooh, excuse me. So Andy is to go on and call Junior's father's cell. So Logan, of course. And so Andy finds, of course, his Junior's father's cell phone in some robe in the bathroom. And then Andy goes and is to stick his hand into this bubbled bath. And when he puts his hand in this tub, he realizes that it's cold, and he's like, Junior, like, should probably be a little bit like cautious about this tub, like it's cold. It's like, well, yeah, because he's talking to you and it's taking forever. So Annie sticks his hand in this tub and goes and gets bub kissed nowhere. And so, like, we're obviously thinking, one, where is Chucky at? We're obviously thinking, two, where is the dead body? And neither one is in the tub. So Andy goes like, well, I guess I'll come back later to eventually come for this Chucky doll. So Chucky is to come out of this toilet. I'm immediately thinking in my brain, I'm like, this looks like the Ghoulies, like the poster for the Ghoulies. Like, was that some kind of weird, goofy reference that they did there, or was that to like not mean anything? So Chucky is to, of course, get out of this toilet, and he's like, yeah, I was just effing with Andy. Like, I really just wanted to like mess with him a little bit. And so Logan was chucked down this laundry chute, like his body was chucked down there, and so conveniently, like, the body disappeared. So after, like, it's all said and done, Chuck used to mention that, I guess, guns are kind of his kryptonite, as well as axes and fire. And so, like, I guess we kind of break down like the weakness of this character to then push on maybe to a second season where we kind of work those things out a lot more, I guess. So Chuck used to say, hey, you want to go and grab a bite? Like, you want something to eat? So we push on to have both Chucky and Junior going off to Tiffany Valentine's place and like connect with all these people. And so Junior is, of course, to be told that he is going to have to kill Devin because Devin is taped up into this chair, and so Junior is eventually going to have to kill Devin. So now let's cover the Jake and the Lexi like story. Let's cover what they're doing. So Jake and Lexi are off going and being like very concerned about what's going to happen next. And so and that Chucky could come at them at any moment kind of thing. And so all of a sudden this Chucky just goes through and knifes through this plastic and like, hey, guess who's here? I'm Chucky. So all of a sudden Chucky's gunned down by Kyle, and we're like, oh, like she saved the day. Like, oh, thank God that she was able to like get back here in time. So Kyle is now talking to both Jake and Lexi, and so Kyle is just kind of mentioning how it could be possible that Chucky can easily manipulate a child and then turn around and like have one child create an army for him, and that's the one thing that Kyle's worried about. So worried about it that she has to go on and drug both Jake and Lexi and say before Jake passes out, it's like, well, hey, like I'm here doing this for your own good. Like I'm trying to protect you. And Jake passes out to eventually wake up hours later. So here is my thing. Like, we can't confirm the ultimate demise of Kyle be when we get to this one moment. So Junior, Tiffany, Chucky, and a number of Chucky dolls are all to be in this spot, and also Nika, who is technically Chucky, but then is kind of in and out. So Chucky, of course, is to go on and to talk to all of his other Chucky dolls, and is to mention like, okay, hey guys, like we're gonna go and like wipe out the planet basically, or wipe out as much as we can, and we're gonna go on and uh, kill everybody. And then one of the Chucky dolls is like, well, hey, and it's like, okay, what? And so he's like, well, like, are we gonna kill babies? And it's like, no, we're not gonna kill babies. And so the like questioned, well, what if it's twins? Like, if anything, like those can outnumber you and really get to you. And so Chucky's just to start laughing, and it's like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Like, because really, when looking at it, it's like it's every Chucky doll's own discretion, and like if you have to question it, just kill it, I guess. Sadly enough, so whoever it could be. So all of a sudden, like Chucky is talking to Nika, who is Chucky, and like mentioning like, hey, like how is it like being in that body? And like Chucky's to mention like, you know how much tail I get? You know how much like people are really throwing at me. And so we then turn around and have Tiffany, who's just kind of like, man, like Chucky, you are so like self obsessed right now, like to an absurd degree. As all the Chucky dolls are to be boxed up and to go off to be sent somewhere, like I think it's really to be at the movie theater, and then afterwards they're to be actually sent off to some homes nearby or something like that. So, I guess any number of the people that showed up at this movie theater, they were to have eventually gotten uh, a good boy doll or whatever, Chucky doll. So we go on here, and we at some point have Tiffany, who's talking to Chucky, and is to go on and mention like he's self-obsessed and so on and so forth. And so eventually Nika is to turn back into Nika, and so she ends up falling over. And so Chucky is to tell Tiffany, it's like, well, hey, how about you go and you kill Nika? Because really with her, like, she's like this Chucky's kind of in and out. And so justifyingly, like, why take the risk? And so Chucky's telling Tiffany to go and kill Nika. And Tiffany can't go through with it. To the point of Tiffany going and turning on Chucky and going and basically like knifing his head off. And Junior was kind of tempted to go and try to kill Nika, but then eventually he like is to start asking so many questions that eventually Tiffany just goes off and starts killing this Chucky doll and ripping its head off. So now Junior is to go off with of course Tiffany, because Tiffany had set up this bomb of sorts, and I think Tiffany was to go on and be like drugged and taken out of this place. We don't show how that's to have been happened, but I guess it just happens regardless. Because we have it the further later on into this episode that Tiffany is keeping Nika like completely and utterly having an inability to go anywhere, because Tiffany had gone on and chopped off not only Nika's legs, but then also chopped off her arms as well. So this girl has basically nowhere to go if she even is going to be Nika, because she can maybe slip into Charles also. So yeah, this girl has now no legs or arms, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so horrifying. So we have Devin still in this home, and so Andy is to make his way into this home and not go through the front door that is to be booby trapped. And so Andy is to rip off the tape of Devin and is to go on and like untie Devin. And so Devin is crazily trying to make it out of this house, and all of a sudden Kyle is going on and trying to see if there's anybody at this house, and Chucky is to go on and say, "Oh, please help me, help," in some kind of kid voice. And Kyle comes running in there, and there's this big, massive explosion that is to happen. And we immediately have to assume, because Jake and Lexi are to quickly assume, once they wake up from their drugs, that since that building had technically exploded and that Devin was in that building, Jake is to naturally assume that Devin is dead. So Jake goes off to Devin still now, like kind of uh, disheveled room because he's moving technically. And so Jake is kind of going through Devin's old place with whatever stuff is really left there. And all of a sudden, Devin is to appear. And so both Jake and Devin kiss. And so it's like, oh my god, like, how did you get out of there? And so Devin is to explain, it's like, well, hey, I don't know about Andy, and I don't know if Kyle made it out of there, but luckily I just made it out of there just in time. It's like, oh, convenient, right? So now the big plan, the big enchilada, is to have Devin say, it's like, well, hey, like, these dolls are gonna make their way to this movie theater because like that's to be where the big finale kind of is for this episode. So Jake makes his way to this movie theater, of course, with everyone else, and Lexi is to go and find her mom. And so her mom, who is of course the mayor, is to go on and do this whole like movie theater announcement that they're going to go on, and Mayor Michelle Cross is going to have all of a sudden uh, Jennifer uh, Jennifer Tilly herself be the celebrity of appearance at this theater, to go on, and she is to say that, hey, like, she is going to come from her own private collection and give everybody good guy dolls, or good boy dolls, or good guy dolls. So, like, you guys are gonna all get one of those. And so we're like, yay, weirdly. So, and Jennifer Tilly goes on and gives Caroline one of the good guy dolls. So now we go on into the theater to watch, of course, a Frankenstein movie. We have Lexi, who, before this whole speech is to be over with, Lexi is to go and find that Junior and Chucky are luring her into some part of this theater. And so Chucky's on the back of Junior. And so Junior is like, oh, help me, Lexi, help me. And Lexi's rushing off because Lexi does not realize that Junior is in cahoots with Chucky. So Lexi is chasing off to figure out, like, how she can help Junior, because technically she still loves him. But we'll see what happens with season 2, I guess. If that means anything, because this is spoiler territory. So we now push on here to, of course, have... Let's go into the focusing of the movie theater. So we have, of course, where we're watching this Frankenstein-like movie. We have the Mayor Michelle Cross, who, like, I'm wondering if she's actually scared, like, about this movie, because it feels like she's uneasy or something. I don't know what it is with her. And so Michelle Cross is just kind of like looking at this empty seat, and she's like, oh. So all of a sudden we have Nathan Cross, who is to come and no longer be and fill that empty seat. So Michelle Cross is like, oh my god, you came. Why are all these floors like so sticky? There is a kid present. But it was a joke that I had to just put down there. So it was a joke. So the mayor and Nathan are kind of smooching it up. And so Mayor Michelle goes off to then get popcorn. While she's getting popcorn, we have Chucky, who's to mention his favorite part in the film, where Frankenstein is going off and, like, playing around with this girl, but then eventually he chucks her into the water, and he laughs about it. And he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and start killing people. So Chucky goes under the seats and goes right under Nathan's seat and stabs into him, and starts, of course, to be this thing where he's going to start going through under other people's seats, start stabbing into them and killing them off. So here's a thing here that doesn't quite make sense to me, but it's like a cool, interesting effect here. So Michelle Cross is to come back with the thing of popcorn and immediately is to put it in Nathan's lap. Nathan is now dead here, and we are never to have that whole, like, evil twin of whoever from Cult of Chucky, because technically this actor was played by the same guy, but I guess it really doesn't matter here now, does it? So Nathan Cross is now dead, and the weird thing that kind of bugs me is that there's blood just coming from this guy's mouth, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like, why is he bleeding from his mouth? That makes no sense. Like, I get it, it's for the effect of it all, and it's to, like, confirm to us that this guy is dead, but he's still bleeding from the mouth. Like, what leg injury is this person getting where he's bleeding from the mouth? This makes no sense. Like, was Chucky going and, like, stabbing into the back of the seat? Then maybe I could justify that. Maybe I could understand that maybe if he stabbed Nathan in the back of the seat, but it doesn't look like that. It just seems like Chucky is just kind of like on all fours, just kind of roaming around from seat to seat to seat and just stabbing into people. So we also didn't have it where Caroline eventually turns into this also evilish character because I guess she's just a young girl. So Charlie eventually just continues to stab through all these people's seats. And so Michelle Cross goes and gives Nathan popcorn and then grabs some and then starts eating it and starts realizing that she's eating popcorn with blood on it. And she's like, oh. And then she's like, oh my God, Nathan, you're dead. And so now she's running off like, oh, my husband is dead. And then all of a sudden people are starting to realize more and more that someone is stabbing them underneath these seats or maybe in the back of the seat. I don't know. And so we have people all of a sudden just running like crazy, stampeding their way through this theater to the point so much so that Mayor Michelle Cross is to go and fall over and get trampled on by people and murdered and killed. And I'm like, oh my God. So Jake, of course, is to realize that he is to have to make his way to this movie theater. And so Jake goes to this movie theater. I always like to say things in a goofy way. That's what I always like to do. So Jake makes it here, and everybody's now gone. It's like couldn't have gotten there any time sooner. Like, couldn't have like timed out that movie a little bit better, Jake? You had to wait till everybody's gone and the credits are rolling and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So Jake is to now have to face off with Chucky because we have quite a few times where people are having to face off with Chucky. But let's go and let's cover the Lexi face off with Chucky. So Lexi is to now eventually find Junior and Chucky to be, of course, behind the scenes, behind the theater, or behind the screen of this movie, where now Junior is to showcase to Lexi, haha, like, I'm not as defenseless as you thought because I've teamed up with Chucky now. So Junior is trying to convince, of course, Lexi to team up. That, like, hey, we're the perfect couple, you and I. Like, if anything, like, you've always been, like, a perfect example of how, like, you could possibly be as villainous as I can be now. And, like, there's so much potential here. And Lexi's like, no, Junior, I'm sorry, I can't do that. So you would have thought with this kind of rejection that Junior would have had, he would have just stabbed Lexi horrifically. But instead, we have Chucky who's just kind of tempted to kill Lexi. But then Junior swoops in and stabs into Chucky. And Chucky stabs into Junior, killing Junior off. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I'm really looking at it like Junior killed somebody. So, yeah, of course he was going to die here because what else was he going to do? End up in prison for the rest of his life? And so, what better way to just kind of have this character have a send off by just killing him at the end of this? Which is kind of sad because he probably won't be in season two. Maybe as a ghost that is to come back and just be like, he might be the Dennis Leary of Chucky, where he just goes and looks at Jake and he's like Dennis Leary did in Amazing Spider-Man. Maybe we can have that whole thing come in there where they can use Junior some kind of way. Probably not. So let's go into the Jake situation. So Jake is to have Dennis go and grab Caroline and get her out of here so like she can be safe. And so now it's kind of the face off between both Jake and Chucky. And so really when it comes down to it, we just have both Chucky and Jake who are kind of like running through these aisles. Jake is to have Chucky jump on top of him, and Chucky's like, well, it's kind of weird that a doll would have this kind of strength on him. And so how this all eventually plays out is that we also have Jake, who is to also be very upset that he's to go on and tell Chucky, while seemingly Jake is to have the upper hand on this Chucky doll and is choking it out. He's to say, like, well, yeah, like, I feel really bad because, like, you had killed my dad, which I felt great about it, but then, like, when really breaking it down, it's like, well, what if, like, my dad could have eventually saw me have a boyfriend and accepted my lifestyle and, like, stuff like that. Like, what if like Lucas would have warmed up to me and so on and so forth, which I don't think would have ever happened, but okay, sure. So Chucky used to say, it's like, that is so gay. And then and so eventually Jake just gets so angry, so upset that he has to go on and rip the eyeballs out of this Chucky doll, and that of course is to kill it off. So now we have it to where, okay, all of the dolls are now killed, but we still have Jennifer Tilly, who still has a huge, massive amount of dolls that are all to be on this truck, going to be hauled away somewhere. And conveniently, we have Andy, who is still alive. It's like, oh my god, he's still alive. He made it. Like, he's probably a little bloody, but he made it. So Andy is going off and seeing that Jake and everybody, all the kids are like on the outside of this movie theater. And so Andy's giving Jake like the thumbs up, like, yeah, like, we did it. We're like, we won. And so Jennifer is, I guess, having problems starting her car. And so Andy goes off and is to drive the car, and he's like, yeah, like, I'm feeling good because, like, I'm definitely going to go on and, like, destroy all these dolls. Cue, all of a sudden, we have Tilly, who appears to us as some doll and is to explain that she's like, oh, she's Tilly, but she's the doll version of Tilly. And so that Tilly's to force Andy to do whatever she wants. And so we end up just seeing that supposedly Andy is going to some airport, which I don't know what that means. Like, does that mean that uh, that this whole second season is going to be a completely different thing, and we have now wrapped up the whole Jake story? Are we going to go back to the Jake story? Like, do we feel like there's something completely different that we need to put together or tell here with Andy having to eventually go to an airport somewhere delivering all these dolls forcibly because of Tilly? I'm kind of curious how this is all going to eventually break down. But speaking with breakdown, I think I'm going to break my way out of here because I think I have covered most of this. The only thing that I still have left to cover is that the three kids, Devin, Jake, and Lexi, eventually go to Junior's gravestone and are to leave flowers, while Fairchild, I guess, had gotten like, hey, you definitely didn't kill this principal. Like, this Chucky doll would have had to. Like, there isn't any real hard evidence, like, to have it be Fairchild who had killed. So luckily they did resolve that, even though they should have done that a heck of a lot sooner. So these kids are going off and are to uh, like talk about Junior and talk about like things, and then they end up kind of walking off, I guess, to maybe they were all adopted by Fairchild, like because they're all like out of parents at this point. Well, yeah, that's true. Like Lexi, like her parents are dead, unless like the mayor is conveniently like trampled and not completely dead, but I'm assuming she's dead. I'm assuming like Nathan's dead. Like we have both Lucas and Logan brothers dead, and Bree's dead. So what family does Jake have? Devin's mom is dead. Junior's like of course dead. So like all three of these kids have nowhere to go. So they might probably get adopted by Fairchild. I'm assuming, because where else are they gonna go? All right. So with that said, I think that covers the season. Man, what a wild ride! But otherwise, like, I think that there's other Chucky movies that I just think are just a tweed bit better. Like we have Cult of Chucky, where like overall Cult of Chucky's not a good film. I'll admit that, but like at least we have like three dolls like just creating crazy carnage in that film, whereas like we just get like what, maybe one, maybe two dolls at the end of this, and we were expecting like hundreds. We were expecting like a gremlin scenario where we're just seeing hundreds upon hundreds of Chuckies just going through and causing chaos, and we didn't see that. That wasn't the payoff that we got here, and the payoff that I was kind of expecting. We just got a bunch of dolls asking questions, and that was about it. That kind of sucked. But I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the ride. It was just like I was just like backing and forthing about it. I was kind of like I don't know. But anyways, I think I'm gonna go before I make this video any longer. Thank you guys for otherwise hanging on to this series. I don't know exactly when season 2 is going to drop, but hopefully when I realize that it is going to drop, whenever I hear from that, then I'm going to go on and hopefully try and cover that, so guarantee that. But other than that, I am going to get out of here. It's sad. Like, I always hate having to like finish up a show or finishing up a whatever, because I always am just like, well, man, I just like want one more episode, or I want one more kind of like defining thing or whatever. Like it felt like they kind of cliffhanged something here, and I just want to keep going into it, but like we're at the end of the road now, and we'll see when eventually season 2 is on the horizon of things. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. And plus, also, yeah, guarantee that there's going to be a season 2 because, like, this show was heavily, like, really trending. And so a lot of people were probably like, wait a minute, there's only 8 episodes? What the fuck? But yeah, of course, there was only 8 episodes because it was probably to really just last through October, but they kind of like started it at a goofy point of October. It was kind of weird. But other than that, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.